going pro was always like I always wanted to, but it was never like I never stood out like a sore thumb to anybody of like, oh, this kid's gonna get drafted out of high school. This kid's gonna be a top round. You know what I'm saying? So I had to really kind of make a name for myself, and the only way to do it was to kind of be the number one player in JUCO. It was like I got to be number one. I got to be number one.
Alrighty, welcome to the second episode of the Royals Pipeline, your podcast for everything Kansas City Royals minor league baseball here with KC Sports Network. I'm Jared. As always, that's Kevin. We are excited for episode 2, ready to talk. The minor league season has kicked off. Kevin, but how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day here in Kansas City. We've had minor league baseball. All the teams have played. The Quad Cities finally got some games in after getting rained out in South Bend. Not surprising if you've ever been to South Bend, but it's like, so we're so glad to be playing baseball. So a lot to talk about and some really cool stuff we got on today's episode, especially a special interview that we have with JC Vanek.
Yeah, we're going to go through the start of the minor league season for all levels. And like Kev just mentioned, we have an awesome interview with JC Vanek of the Columbia Fireflies, taken in the 2025 draft, I think the 14th round, if I recall. Out of Chipola Junior College. Just a really intriguing bat in the Royals farm system. When you watch the interview, you're like, okay, this is like an 80 grade Kuman as well. So we'll be going to that here in a little bit. But first, we want to talk about each level here. So we're going to go through some hitters to watch and pitchers to watch and just kind of go through who's been kind of hot to start the season. So we're going to start with Omaha Storm Chasers. And the first guy I have to mention is not a prospect, but Cameron Misner. This guy slashing 314, 390, 553, 933 in the first 10 games of the Storm Chasers here. He's got 2 doubles, 2 home runs, 11 RBIs, 5 walks. Now you look at the strikeouts, he's got 10 strikeouts in 35 at-bats. So the swing and miss is still an issue for Cameron Misner. Even when he was a prospect with the Rays, everybody kept saying like he was going to be the next big thing, but you could just never figure out the swing and miss. But this is a guy who's super athletic, plays the outfield really well. Always has had the raw tools, and just the hit tool just hasn't panned out.
Yeah, I really like him a lot. In many ways, I think he reminds me of NJ Melendez. I know some Royals fans may like, oh, is that a great comp? But at the end of the day, it's like MJ Melendez, the issue why he's probably not a Kansas City Royal now is because, he was costing over $2-3 million in arbitration, and Misner obviously is not costing that. So I think if you're like, hey, we want to give another chance to a guy, some guy who has some big fly potential, could take a walk. But you're right that there's a lot of swing and miss to his game. But he's the kind of guy that you can bring up from AAA, can get on a hot streak, can kind of carry you for a week or two. So I really like what we're seeing because, as you have seen, the Royals obviously need bats. And if somebody should go on the IL or maybe there's a DFA in a month or so, maybe Misner could be a guy that could come up and give a spark.
The Royals need bats. I feel like that's the theme every year for the last 4 years. Just trying to find offense, and it's just you're trying to find it anywhere. But another guy that we can talk about here, talk about needing offense, Josh Rojas. I know this is a guy, Kev, you were high on in the spring training. A guy who I think the Royals have been interested in the past and just could never find a way to get him. And then he's kind of struggled. Like last year wasn't very good in the major leagues. But he's slashing 314, 368, 543 with a 911 OPS, 5 doubles, 1 home run, 9 RBIs, and 35 at-bats. And he's got 3 walks to 9 strikeouts. Like, it's been impressive what we've seen in Rojas. And we talk about the Royals kind of needing that bench bat in some sense, right? They just brought Michael Massey back up, so they're going to give him a chance to see kind of what he can do in that role. Tyler Tolbert's kind of up there for the speed. You're not really expecting much in terms of the bat from him. But I'm interested that Josh Rojas can play all over the infield, and he could be an option for the Royals here in a couple months.
Yeah, he had a great spring training. There was some kind of rumblings that he might have made the major league roster. It was just a little too crowded as it was, especially with the addition of Starling Marte. But he stayed with the organization, and he's gone off to a hot start in Omaha. Now we always got to take a grain of salt with Omaha stats. It's a hitter's park. I believe last year Baseball America, according to Park Factors, Omaha's Warner Park was like the 5th most hitter friendly. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But Rojas does a lot of good things. He hits line drives. He has a good plate approach. That's something that the Royals really have been advocating for, is a good plate approach. And we've kind of seen that. The OBP has been a lot better this year. The chase rate is really down. So I think, again, if Michael Massey is not panning out, or if there's an injury that happens, I think Rojas could be a guy that could come into the infield and really make a difference.
Sorry, I had myself muted there. Yeah, I've always liked him in the past. Rojas has been awesome, just kind of a good player that's been playing in the major leagues for quite a while, so could make an impact here. Pitching side now, you just mentioned Omaha's a hitter's park, so there is not much when you look at the pitching numbers here at Omaha. That's super impressive. You got like Ethan Bosacker with a 12.79 ERA. Shane Pizzini got lit up today. He's got a 12.79 ERA. Beckway, he pitched well today, but got a 7.71 ERA on the season. So not a ton there. I will mention Ryan Berger. This is the guy who came out early for an injury, I believe, today, which is kind of a shame because he was throwing really well. He had a 2.79 ERA, 10 strikeouts in 9 2/3 innings. He was struggling with the velo. The velo was down. So that's where my kind of concern is now, right? Because now he's coming out of the third inning of an injury. This is a guy I was excited about that could have been a rotation piece at some point for the Royals this year.
Yeah, and he got shut down at the end of the year. I mean, I think people kind of forget about that. Luckily, he came back ready for spring training, but he got shut down at the end of the year for some shoulder issues. And you just kind of hope that he's not a guy that's going to constantly be dealing with this. Him and Stephen Kolek came in the Freddie Fermin trade. Stephen Kolek is currently on the IL right now. So that's two pitchers that they have down. And we saw with Cole Reagans getting hurt today. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's serious, but you kind of are right now asking, if Cole Reagans had to hit the IL, who are they bringing up? And right now, I don't know if there's a whole lot of options. I mean, I know Mason Black is an option, but the Royals are treating him more as a reliever in Omaha. As you said, Ryan Berger might be hitting the IL, so you just hope it's nothing major. But the great thing about Berger is he's always had stuff that he's always generated strikeouts, but he's always kind of struggled to like prevent runs, and that was kind of his problem when he was with the Royals. And like you said, you got to keep things with a grain of salt. Stephen Kolek was pretty bad last year when he was in Omaha, and then he came up and he did really well with Kansas City. So you can't always go by ERA with these guys, but I'm hope Berger is kind of a guy to pay attention to, because if he's healthy, he could really help this rotation, especially if the 1 through 5 can't stay healthy in any way.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at it, it's like Aaron Sanchez is not going to be an option, right?
Nope.
Looking at what he's been doing right now in Omaha, guy who's had success in All-Star in the past, he just hasn't returned to his old self. Ryan Ramsey is like the only other guy that I could be like, okay, this guy could potentially be an option. He's got one start, 4.50 ERA, but he's like a high 80s, low 90s kind of innings eater. You're not going to really expect much from him out of the back end of the rotation. So yeah, options are a little bit limited in Omaha.
They are. And Eric Sarantola is kind of a fun pitcher, but he is a 2-pitch pitcher. His fastball has good velocity. It doesn't grade well on any stuff models. I know he's doing well in Omaha. He's probably gonna get a chance at some point, but I'm not as high as some people are. I just feel like if he goes to the majors, he's gonna get exposed.
Yeah, and like he's a reliever option too, right? So if you're looking for a rotation option, it's just kind of like, moving on to Northwest Arkansas, Cam, who do we got that you've been watching down there?
Well, two hitters really stick out to me, and Brett Squires is kind of the main guy. University of Oklahoma product. He is going into today's games. He has 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, hitting 400 with a 1.50 OPS. You look at what he's done in terms of WOBA. He's about 600 WOBA so far. He had a great spring. I mean, he was really up there in batted barrel ability and hard hit rate. This spring, he really showed a lot of potential. But he's also been a guy that's kind of treaded water a little bit. I mean, he kind of reminds me a little bit of maybe CJ Alexander, who kind of put up some big numbers, who was kind of a late developing guy. And Alexander tore up AAA, and then he kind of struggled once he went to the majors. So he's one guy I really like. Another guy I like too is Dustin Dickerson, who's a shortstop but plays multiple positions in the field. He's only hitting 214, but he has 889 OPS, really good plate discipline, 4 walks to 6 strikeouts. He has a home run and 4 RBIs. He has a good eye at the plate, and he's just one of those guys that can really play multiple positions. He really outplays his tools in some ways. So, he could be a guy that I'm not saying he could be a factor this year, but maybe he's the guy that could push for a 40-man roster spot this offseason if he has a good season in AA or in AAA.
Squires is an interesting one because he's someone who's posted a 129, 151 wins run created plus, both in A and high A. He struggled a little bit last year, dropped down to 105 and in AA, but he's 26 years old, kind of like you talked about. Could he be a late breakout? You like what you see so far. I mean, he's walking almost at a 17% rate. I don't know if that's going to stand forever with him just looking at past trends, but it's a bat that could play. He's always posted decent strikeout numbers. Some have ranged closer to the 30% range, but he's been like 25.9 in high A. Like this year, he's 22.2%. So it's a guy that's kind of interesting. I think could potentially break the roster more as like a 4A type guy in the future.
Yeah, and if you looked at what his like AAA Statcast percentiles were, I mean 99th percentile in max EV. I mean he had legitimate batted ball stats, and so like you said, he's a late bloomer. Sometimes is this just a guy that's just feasting on minor league pitching, or is this a legitimate guy who's maybe a Ryan O'Hearn type, or just one of those late bloomers? So so he'll be an interesting one to watch, and maybe Dickerson could be the same way. Though I'm more higher on Squires than Dickerson.
Yeah, I love it. What about on the pitching side for you?
On the pitching side, I have two. And, Frank Mazzucato made his first start of the year. It was a pretty solid start, 4 innings, 4 strikeouts, two hits allowed, 2 walks, no runs. I mean, it's, the great thing about Mazzucato is he's always had a really an intriguing, I'm sorry, he had 1 run. But he had an intriguing curveball. The fastball velocity has always been an issue. He showed some velocity jump this spring. But the problem with him is just the control. And if you look at his CSW, his cold strikes plus whiffs, 23.9% last year, 21.5% in his first start. I think that he reminds me a lot of maybe a Daniel Lynch type. I don't think he's efficient enough to be a starter, and I don't think like his control is good enough to be a starter. But if you kind of put him in lower, fewer innings, could his stuff play up more? And I could see that. And we're seeing Daniel Lynch proving to be a pretty decent reliever. I mean, he's probably been the best left-handed reliever in the Royals bullpen, which says something with Matt Stram. So I like Mazzucato. I know a lot of people are down on him, but I thought he's done a good job. And then another lefty who stuck out is Hunter Patterson. Big stuff, big fastball. If you look at kind of what he's done so far, he has a 34.6% whiff rate, 33.3% K rate so far this year. I mean, the guy is one of those, he just reaches back and he throws gas. And I think sometimes you need some guys like that. The Royals have not really had a lot of guys like that. So these are 2 lefties that I'm really paying attention to in Northwest Arkansas that could move quickly, especially if the Royals are just prioritizing left-handed help in the bullpen.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with my Mazzucato soapbox here for a second because I get
please do.
annoyed. The Royals fans who are always kind of like the Royals that missed on this pick, Frank Mazzucato in the first round. They never took Frank Mazzucato because they thought he was a first rounder. They wanted to save some money so they could go get Ben Kudrna and they could go get Carter Jensen. And now we're seeing what Carter Jensen has become. Kudrna's still kind of going through his struggles. Maybe looks more like a reliever, but like that's the reason you got Mazzucato is because you could bring those 2 high upside guys into the farm system. And they did a really good job with Jensen right now in the development, and he's looking like a potential rookie of the year candidate for this team.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest, and we'll kind of go over this when we start talking about the draft and doing our draft preview. This isn't the NFL draft. This isn't the NBA draft. It's not like you just like pick, best available. That's not how it works. It's, if anything, I think like the MLB draft is almost like college in some ways, because it's almost like you have a certain budget and you're trying to like make all these pieces fit. And you're right, Mike Mazzucato, he was the first round pick, but he wasn't their top pick. It was, they wanted to make room for Kudrna and Carter Jensen, and look what Carter Jensen's doing now. Like if you draft somebody else, then you don't have Carter Jensen. So I totally agree with that. I mean, obviously he's not a first round success story yet, but I mean, I don't think like the expectations of realistic Royals fans should have been like, hey, that was not the whole point of him being drafted in the first place.
No, I agree. I think it's one of those things where you have to kind of look at the bigger picture and what they got. And then it's like that draft, they also got Noah Cameron. So you have to look at it. Noah Cameron went under slot in that draft, but still, they were able to get a guy like that. Sarantola went over slot. Shane Panzini was the other big one that they went out and got and tried and got over slot. But like they overslotted Kudrina for almost like 1.2 million. Carter Jensen was like maybe 300,000 total, and then they oversaw Sarantola, Panzini. So like that's what the guys that were after. Now you can complain because most of those guys haven't panned out besides Carter Jensen. So I can see the complaint there. But yeah, I mean, you have to be happy if you get like a Noah Cameron and a Carter Jensen out of that draft, and we still kind of don't know what Peyton Wilson is.
Right. I mean, you got two already major league contributors right now. I mean, you have
Yep.
one guy who finished top 5 in the Rookie of the Year, probably another guy that's going to finish top 5 in the Rookie of the Year, maybe push to win the Rookie of the Year. Yeah, it's like people going, "Oh, that draft was a bust because of Mazzucato," just aren't looking hard enough.
Yeah. Last guy I'm going to mention before we move on to high A here is Drew Beam. This is a guy that I've been high on since they drafted him. Just one of those guys that's going to be a quick riser through the week. I kind of talked about it on the draft day when he was taken by the Royals. Like I thought he was going to be a quick riser. It's a 4-pitch mix that's pretty average. So he doesn't going to blow you away, but gets a ton of ground ball outs, sits kind of in the mid 90s with the fastball. Has really good secondaries, and he's just able to kind of eat innings. And we talk about the Royals needing some relief this year. I think Beam could be an option. Like I don't see how he, like, you look at what's happening in Omaha. Like I think Drew Beam could be an option for the Royals rotation if they need somebody.
I liked what I saw. I watched his start yesterday, and I felt he was pretty efficient. Again, he's not like a big stuff guy. He's not a guy that's going to be getting you like 10, 15 Ks a game, but he works efficiently. He attacks hitters. He keeps the ball in play, but limits the hard contact. Like you said, I think he's a guy that's really a good fit for this Royals pitching development system. And you're right. Like with the pitching kind of being ho ho hum right now in Omaha, he might make a case to be there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to Quad Cities. So who are some hitters we should be watching in Quad Cities high A here, Kev?
We've only had one game, so I mean,
Yep.
but it's but a couple guys I really like. Tyreek Kemp, he was a draft pick out of Baylor, played on the Dutch national team. Really like a polished guy, 23 years old. He's not very big. He was drafted in the 6th round. But he's a lot like a Javier Vaz. I think has a little bit more of a power upside than Javi Vaz. He's definitely, I think, a better defensive player. He's always had really good marks from scouts about his glove and his ability and his range. So I really like him, somebody to pay attention to. Another guy too is Asbel Gonzalez. I mean, he made an impact in his first game yesterday, 2 for 4, 2 stolen bases, 1 walk. I mean, he's a guy. He had a 365 OBP last year. The hit tool wasn't as great, but it was also like, I think he just kind of broke down a little bit last year. He was a teenager, played in Columbia. I think just the grind got to him, and you could just tell when he was swinging, he just wasn't having anything of it because maybe some fatigue was sitting in there. But he had 78 stolen bases last year, which is just really insane. I mean, that's not Billy Hamilton numbers, but that's kind of close. And he was the Royals base runner of the year. And so I think it's just Asbel's a guy that I think some people are kind of down on because the numbers didn't eye pop, but there's still like a lot of good things about his profile that I think could develop now that he's had a whole year of professional ball under his belt.
Yeah, I agree on Asbel. I think this is a guy that we're going to see jump quickly to Double-A. I don't think he's going to be in High A very long just because of the way he's kind of developed and the tools that he kind of brings to the table. So definitely watching him. Only other hitter I'll mention here is early. 1 game, terrible weather. I'm going to chalk it up to terrible weather, but Blake Mitchell went 0 for 4 with 4 strikeouts, Royals first rounder. We're going to chalk that up to just bad weather because it was not a great weather day for that first game. They put, like you said, they canceled 2 games, I think, before they even got to play this first one. So I think we have to look at this first game, Blake Mitchell 0 for 4 4Ks, and all these other hitting stats and pitching stats with a grain of salt here.
I agree. And yeah, I mean, it's just a long layoff. I mean, these guys were probably high. These guys were hyped going into it. And yeah, I mean, I'm still high on Blake Mitchell as well. I'm not ready to panic just because he had a golden sombrero in his first game. That strikeouts are going to be part of his game. I say like, hey, let's give him another game tonight.
Yeah. What about on the pitching side?
So a couple guys I like is Josh Hansel. It's, he's was a 16th round pick in the 2023 draft. Kind of a Wichita State product, more of a kind of like a Drew Beam, more of a pitcher rather than like a thrower. He produced some good numbers last year. In low A, he had a 4.73 ERA, which wasn't great, but then he went to high A, 2.81 ERA. He generates decent whiff for a starter, 26.7% whiff rate. But he's a guy that, I think is just with more polish. I think he could really do pretty well in high A in his second stint. But the other guy I really love is LP Langevin. Again, he's from Quebec City, so you got to make sure you have that French accent to it. But he has big stuff. He's had questionable control. He came off an injury. He showed some promise in the Arizona Fall League, but he's always been known for generating whiffs. In his first game, he had a 57.1 CSW, 71.4% whiff, 3 Ks in his debut. I mean, if this guy harnesses control, I mean, this is a really fast riser reliever. I mean, he pitched in the Fall League, so that means that he had some prospect hype. So I'm really looking forward to Langevin this year in Quad Cities.
Yeah, I like that. Only other couple guys I'll mention here too. David Shields made his high A debut, 2 innings, 2 earned, 3 walks, 5 Ks. I think his dad commented on my post that he was sitting 90 to 93 in bad weather, which that's pretty positive for David Shields, who's coming out of the draft 88 to 91. So you'd like to see that velo increase there for him. But again, bad weather from what I was reading through the strike zone wasn't great by the umpire either. He probably should have got out of an inning striking out the side, and then it kind of all unraveled from there. Other guy I'll mention is Camden Edge. This guy went 1 inning, no hits, no runs, 3 strikeouts. He was a guy I was interested on draft day. Now, I find it interesting because, one, they took him in the 20th round overall, so it was the last pick of the entire draft. And I thought for sure he was going to Austin Peay, where he was committed to. It's a JUCO kid, but he's got a 4-pitch mix. The fastball lives around 91 to 94. He's topped out at 96. I don't know what his velo was in the high A start because it's really hard to get readings from those lower levels. But coming into the draft, that's kind of where the fastball was. High 70s to low 80s slider, mid 70s curveball, low 80s changeup. He's kind of a live arm from a 3-4 slot. So we talk about relievers that could quickly move to the big leagues if their plan is to kind of develop him as a reliever. I really like Camden Edge too.
Yeah, Edge looked really good. That was a name that I saw too. And you're right, David Shields, not the best start, but really cold weather. And again, layoff, a lot of hype for this game. They've been chomping at the bit for playing for multiple days. So I'd like to see what it's going to be like with them. Kind of okay, now the hype of opening days behind them.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're moving on to low A Columbia. So we're going to start on the hitting side here, and we got to talk about Sean Gamble. Feels like Sean Gamble's been making some waves here. I know he's only hitting 263 on the season, but he's looked really, really good in his first 19 at-bats with the Fireflies. He's got 1 home run, 1 double, 2 RBI, 6 strikeouts, so you're kind of concerned a little bit about the swing and miss there, but you can see the tools. You watch him play center field. He's able to really track down the baseball out there. The bat, it's loud off the bat. He hit a towering home run in that game. So I'm really kind of liking what I see from Sean Gamble, and that's kind of what you want from the first round pick here.
Yeah, I really like Gamble a lot. I mean, it's he hit a big home run. I think, one of the things is I think we both talked about was we kind of liked Hammond a little bit more than Gamble at the start of the draft. And I think it's kind of switched. I think we kind of we're kind of maybe I think Gamble gives you more of a better overall profile than Hammond. Both great guys. I just like the profile of Gamble a lot. And I think the fact that he's getting leadoff at-bats at his age without any complex league, experience, I think is a sign of how much the Royals have faith in this guy and his development.
Yeah, I mean, we look at Josh Hammond. He's got 7 strikeouts in the first 16 at-bats. These kids are 18 years old. The last thing they were playing was high school baseball. So you have to remember it's going to take a while to develop. Should we be concerned about the swing and miss rates right now? I don't think so. I mean, one, they're probably amped up because it's their first pro game or first pro series. So they're trying to figure it out. I think if this the trend continues over the next couple of months and you start to worry, but again, both kids are super young. I think it's going to take a little bit here until we kind of see exactly what they're going to bring to the table.
Absolutely. Another guy that I do want to talk about too for hitters is Ronnie Cabrera. I mean, he was one of the guys that was traded with Cole Reagans in the Texas Rangers trade for Aroldis Chapman. He's moved a little slow, but he's off to a good start. He's only hitting 250, but 455 OBP. 375 slugging, 135 WRC plus, has a stolen base. This guy's a specimen. If you watch tape on Ronnie Cabrera, there's a lot of athleticism here, and you can kind of see why the Royals picked him up. So I know his stats haven't been great, but he's a guy to pay attention to. He's 20 years old, so he's playing a little bit of ball, but he's a guy not to sleep on. I could see him being a guy that could really do well in Columbia and make a push for a high A at some point mid-year.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about more guys in Columbia because I really love this roster.
It's a great roster, yeah.
as a college guy who covers college baseball, I want to talk about Brooks Bryan. This guy was a Troy University catcher, kind of was the captain of that team at Troy. I loved this pick when they got him late in the rounds. Power kind of dipped in his senior year a little bit, but he's got raw power. He's got 3 doubles so far this season, 2 RBIs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. He's slashing 364, 462, 636 with a 1098 OPS. Again, college guy in low A. He's probably not going to be in low A very long. He's going to be moving up to high A, but that's a name I'm really intrigued by. Pretty good behind the dish. Still needs to polish up some things behind the plate, but big fan of Brooks Bryan and kind of excited to see what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, Brian's a really, and the one thing about, the Royals, they do a good job is with catching prospects, especially, it seems under this new regime. So, I mean, he's not getting as much luster as obviously like the Blake Mitchells and the Carter Jensens. But, he's a guy to pay attention to. And I think, he could produce he could get some rise in his prospect stock this year.
Yeah, I love it. Moving over to the pitching side. First guy I want to talk about, didn't have a great start, but Michael Lombardi. Went 2 1/3 innings, 2 earned, 1 hit, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. The stuff looked good. I think he was up to 93, 94 with a fastball. This is a guy that was a two-way player at Tulane, right? And then he comes out and is going to join the Royals, not as a two-way player, of course, but he's just a guy who just has recently solely began to focus on pitching, and those are usually the kind of guys that have some untapped upside. So the fastball in the past has been up to 96 with carry, so he's got a sharp curveball that generates some huge vertical separation from that fastball as well, and a solid low 80s changeup. So I think there's a ton of athleticism in this kid. The secondaries are something you can easily build on. Command's a work in progress, one, because he's so new to pitching, but I think there's a lot to like long-term here with Lombardi.
Agreed. 5 strikeouts, in his outing. I mean, yes, he had 2 walks, but you could see the stuff is there. And so I think you're right. Like, I think there was part of it like, hey, he's still he hasn't really been a full-time pitcher, so you got to expect some of the rawness. And then also just the amped up of his first outing. Let's see how he does when he gets kind of more settled down and then in his second outing.
Yeah, I love it. Second guy I'll mention is Blake Walters. This is a guy, big high upside coming out of the draft. You kind of hoping that fastball was going to it got the Bobby Miller comps a lot. The Dodgers right-hander who throws like 100 miles an hour, because Walters was something similar. Goes 4 1/3 innings, 1 hit, 1 unearned run, hit by pitch, walk, and then 3 strikeouts. So a .46 whip throughout that 4.1 4 1/3 innings. Really like what I saw from Walters. This is a guy that I think could have some real big potential for them and could kind of pop off the board.
Yeah, I like Walters a lot too. I've always been a big fan. I know that he has been a little slow on the development, and some of that has been injuries. I know last year he dealt with some injuries, so you had to take that with a grain of salt. I kind of was wondering if they were going to move him up to high A this year after he had been in low A the last 2 years, but it seems like they're kind of taking the slow path, and I don't mind that. I mean, I think, if you feel like, hey, like we still got stuff to teach him and still have things that he needs to develop, do it. But I thought he had a promising first start. The stuff is there. Can he generate enough swing and miss? That will be kind of the difference for him, whether he stays in the rotation or moves to the bullpen down the road.
Yeah, I love it. Anyone else you want to mention in Columbia?
Just one really quick. Brandon Herbold, another Dutch player. He's had a pretty good debut. He had 1.2 innings pitch. He had 3 strikeouts, had 2 hits allowed. He had a 2.63 ERA in the complex league last year. He had a 34.4% K rate, 18% K to walk. He's more of a reliever. I mean, he was 11 appearances all in relief last year, but the Royals have been trying to develop this connection with the Netherlands and kind of getting some of those like unique players. And Herbold, much like Kemp, I think is a really intriguing one that I think has serious prospect potential. He's one guy I wasn't really thinking about, and after his first outing and after some of the things I've been seeing this offseason, I'm kind of more ready to buy some stock in Herbold.
Love it. Last guy I'll mention is Shane Van Dam, because I've been buying stock in Shane Van Dam since the draft, and he went 3 innings, 2 hits, 3 strikeouts. Fastball was, I think, up to 96. That's a Shane Van Dam that was dominant at NC State before he went down with injury. So really excited about that. I'm going to keep running the Shane Van Dam train for everybody.
That is, man. That's Bloodsport Shane Van Dam. That's not
Yeah.
Time Cop Shane Van Dam there, okay?
Yeah.
We need the Bloodsport Shane Van Dam.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick break so we can take you to that interview with JC Vanek here. Again, first baseman with the Columbia Fireflies, play some outfield as well. I think you're all going to really enjoy this, and then we'll be right back to close things out.
I'm BJ Kissel, founder and CEO of KC Sports Network. Emprise Bank has been with us from the beginning. They were our first network partner, and they believed in the vision of what we were building from the start. I can't speak to any other banks or companies and how they operate, but I can tell you from personal experience and based on the growth of the network you're listening to right now, that if you have banking needs, call our friends at Emprise Bank. We've worked with so many great people there over the years, from Vicky and Aggie to Andrea, Lori, Jackie, Deb, and Aaron, and not to mention so many others that not just supported KC Sports Network, but supported our KCSN Foundation as well. But the best thing that I know is that if I have a question or a problem, no matter how dumb the question is, I know who I'm going to call and who I'm going to talk to. And I know that I'm getting an answer from someone that I can trust. And I know that person is there to help us. That's why Emprise Bank has always been and continues to be our partner in Possible. And they can be yours too. You just have to reach out. If you have a banking need, whether it's business or personal, hit me up. I will connect you directly with the same people that have helped us build KCSN. And that's our friends at Emprise Bank.
David Starnes Allstate Insurance is a proud partner of KC Sports Network, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. If you are looking for new coverage or something that better suits your home, auto, health, or any of your other insurance needs, give Dave and his team a call. Elevate your coverage and be worry-free with David Starnes Allstate Insurance.
All righty, we have our first interview with Royals Pipeline. Very excited about this one. We're welcoming JC Vanek, 14th rounder of the 2025 MLB draft, playing for the Columbia Fireflies. JC, welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Excited to talk about your journey. First question we kind of like to kick off with is just tell us a little bit about your journey through baseball, just kind of how you got to where you are today.
I've had a pretty special journey, I'd say. Started, playing since I was 5 years old, T-ball, went through all that, had the good travel ball days. Was kind of blessed to stand with the same group through all my travel career, pretty much. All the same group of guys that I've grew up around have still been with me today, So I went to a really good high school called Barb High School. You can't really describe it. The pictures say everything for you, and the legacy says the rest. And then I was committed to LSU my freshman year of high school, and I was committed all 4 years under Paul Manet. My senior year rolls around, and just things don't work out. Coaching change. He likes to bring his guys over, that's how the game is. Especially college these days. So I was left with zero to no money. So I had to pivot, and this is what I like to call the pivot, and what kind of let me know that I could do something special in this game was I had to go JUCO and kind of get it from nothing, and to go on that table and kind of set a path for kids back home who don't have the big offers or have to go a different way. Like, there's always a route for somebody. And I couldn't be more blessed to call Chipola my home, and then now I'm with the Royals. So, I'm even more blessed,
JC, you were really interesting because you were a two-way player coming out of high school. You played first base and you were a pitcher. Was there ever a decision to make on which path to take, or did you always feel like hitting was your calling?
Man, growing up, I was always kind of even at both, but my pitching always stood out because I was a lefty who could throw the ball pretty hard. So, it always stood out. And LSU, I kind of leaned towards where I was going to pitch. And then I had Tommy John my sophomore year of high school, and I was able to kind of focus on hitting, if that makes sense. Like, I had a whole year where I couldn't really do much throwing, so I was like, man, I'm going to get this hitting stuff as good as I can get it. And then kept going on, and the hitting just started outgrowing the pitching, and like the pitching kind of stayed at where it was, and the hitting just kept going and going. And once I got to junior college, was really when like the hitting just took over everything, and it was like I need to be in the lineup pitching as much, and that's really where I made the decision. I was like, I just need to be a hitter.
Nice.
No, I love it. And you talked a little bit about kind of having those big offers from the big schools, but ultimately deciding to go to Chipola. And to me, Chipola is one of the best JUCOs just covering college baseball that's out there. They have a long track record of developing pro talent. What made that program kind of the right fit for you, and how did that coaching staff really kind of help elevate your game?
So at bottom line, whenever I chose a JUCO, I was thinking it was going for business.
Mm-hmm.
I was going, and it was a stepping stone. I wasn't going because it was my only offer. It was just because I thought I could go somewhere and I could get as many at bats play under a Hall of Fame coach, and see where I can go next. So there was always I was visiting a couple JUCOs, and a couple of them stood out. Obviously, in the Panhandle Conference, like that's probably the best junior college conference there is. And to have offers from most of those schools, it was kind of like Chipola stood out to me from a business standpoint. They went about their work right. They had a weekend, no weekends off. Like it was just straight grind and get after it. And it kind of fell into the lane of like, am I going to JUCO to have fun, or am I going to JUCO to grab my career and let's go, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. And then one of the things that you seem to really develop as a hitter is your plate discipline. I mean, so you had more walks than Ks at the college level, and that's pretty rare. Is that something that you've always kind of had as a hitter, or that kind of approach, or is that something that you kind of developed at Chipola, and maybe in the pros?
I think that my whole life I've been blessed with knowing the zone like the back of my hand. So, I mean, I know what I'm looking for in every at bat. Obviously, it changes within a pitcher, what he has, his stuff, what his release height is, all those little antics that go into it. But at the same time, like I'm looking for a ball over the middle of the plate, and you throw it there, it's gonna get banged. Other than that, I'm not swinging. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that's as clear cut as it gets, but I've been blessed to be able to definitely take advantage of my strike zone and knowing the ins and outs. And it only helps that I'm in pro ball now, where the strike zone gets a little smaller, than junior college. So it even makes it a lot better.
I love it. And yeah, it kind of led to you last spring hitting really well at slash 395, 512, 631. Not last spring, but when you were in college, 9 home runs, 4 walks and strikes out. Like, when did you feel that things really clicked at the plate for you in the JUCO level?
My freshman year. My freshman year, once I had a really good, strong freshman year, made first team all conference, and that was whenever I was like, man, I can compete with these guys, if not be the best on the field every day. And I was like, you really, because going pro was always like, I always wanted to, but it was never like, I never stood out like a sore thumb to anybody of like, oh, this kid's going to get drafted out of high school. This kid's going to be a top round. You know what I'm saying? So I had to really kind of make a name for myself. And the only way to do it was to kind of be the number one player in JUCO. It was like, I got to be number one. I got to be number one. And that ended up happening. And my freshman year was really whenever I was like, oh, I can do this. I was like, it's right there for you. And then my sophomore year was, I mean, it's all between the ears, man. A lot of us are gifted physically, but it's who got the thing between the ears the strongest.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, you were committed to Florida State before signing. I mean, that's a great school. I mean, JD Drew and Buster Posey are grads there. But you chose to go to the Royals. So maybe talk about being drafted in the 14th round and kind of what was that decision like to go between either pro or going to Florida State?
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who was a part of the road. I want to thank the Lord too. He's blessed me to play this game. But I will say that the Royals have always been loyal to me in a way. Growing up, they always had just the biggest generosity. If I had a question about a scout or anybody, I know I could walk up to the Royals guy and just ask him a question just because they were good people. So I felt like I kind of fell into that quadrant a little bit of just being a good person. And I really enjoyed how they did things and how they talked and just they were real. And same with Florida State. I mean, I wanted to play there. I walked in that place on my visit and I was like, this is where I want to be. This is everything I ever wanted. And then I was able to go with the Royals. Now, don't get me wrong, it was a very hard decision, but at the end of the day, like my biggest goal is to play professional baseball, and even I know that the Royals are the best group to do it with.
Yeah, no, I mean, we hear that kind of from the front office, the player first orientation, and kind of how they put the players before anything, and the person that makes the player before anything. You got to play in the MLB draft league too. There's a MLB draft league team near me. I live over by Frederick, Maryland. Just kind of always fun to go out there and see the competition. So what was that experience like for you? What was the competition jump you noticed the most going from that JUCO level to the draft league?
I had a blast in the draft league, man. Those guys were awesome. It was kind of cool because at JUCO you can only have you're only a freshman or you're a sophomore or a redshirt sophomore. So in that sense, I'm playing with a lot of older guys in the draft league who are looking for jobs. So at the same time, I'm learning just as much as I'm playing. Because these guys come from a lot of wisdom. There's some fifth-year seniors that take me under their wing. There's just a lot of people that are really, really tight with me that were like, man, this kid's got it, but we got to get him right in some mental aspects of the game, or just like how much better can we make him? And I really appreciate my teammates for that in the draft league. And also, I will say the biggest jump from like the JUCO to the MLB draft league was facing an above average heater every day, if that makes sense. So you go from 2, 3 times a week, you're facing a guy that's 90, 95 and Chipola, and then all of a sudden you go in the draft league, everybody you facing is 95. So it's like, hey, this is if you can hit this, you got to go. So I mean, there was a little bit of struggle at times because I never had to deal with it, but luckily I've always played against the highest competition, like growing up, travel ball, all that, like the best of the best. So it wasn't hard to adjust to, but it definitely took some time. So, but that was probably the biggest adjustment because I feel like I've always been able to hit the off speeds well, but it's just sometimes the heaters, I mean, they get elite and elite every day. So
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest adjustment.
Nice. How would you say how much your time in the draft league factor into your confidence heading to the draft week? So how much did that experience say help you as you kind of prepared for the draft?
Like I said, at every level I've kind of learned something or kind of grasped something. And same with kind of like my freshman year at Chipola. I knew I was a good player, but I didn't know if I can compete with all these guys who are coming back from Vandy and all these big schools. You watch them on TV and it's like, are you one of them? And then it just so happened that I go to the draft league and it's the same situation. I'm the young kid. I'm trying to pave my way. And it's like, man, and you start competing with these guys. It's like, you can do this every day. Like, yeah, this isn't what you thought it was. Like, you're just as good, if not better.
Yeah, I love that. And kind of walk us through now that you get up to draft day, right? What was that day? I mean, it's a 2-day event, but what were those couple of days like for you? What was that moment when the phone rang and that you knew you were going to Kansas City?
Oh man, it was a stressful day for sure.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know where I was gonna go, but we kind of had an idea that it was gonna be a little earlier than it was. Just because of the only reason I didn't think I could get as much leverage as a JUCO kid, but at the same time I thought I was good enough for all the money in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought I was that guy every day. And it ended up I always had the Royals in the back of the mind. We always kind of talked with them. We were like, man, this is if there's a team that's gonna give you some money, it's gonna be this team. And I mean, credit to my agency, Scott Lonergan, Scott Barber with Ballinger Group. I mean, do they absolutely kill every minute of everything? They're the hardest two working men I've ever met. So they definitely helped me out a little bit, staying calm and seeing where everything was gonna fall. And then once I got a call from the Royals on the 13th, and we talked a little bit, and they threw an offer. And at first it was kind of like, oh, like I didn't know where I was at with that. They called on the 14th, and they're like, hey, we just picked you. So there wasn't really like a negotiating or much. It was like, hey, we picked you. Because I'm expecting like, okay, they're gonna call. I gotta agree. We're gonna go over some things. It was like, hey, we picked you, Vanek. Welcome to the club. It was pretty cool. It was definitely but at the end of the day, some money came up and we had to figure out some of that. And then the Florida State, that was hard to let go. But at the end of the day, I found home and I'm really excited where I'm working now.
That's great. And I know you talked about your experience with the Royals and the loyalty. And that's what really convinced you. But, what did you learn about the organization during that draft process that made you want to bet on yourself and sign with Kansas City?
Like, again, man, the people. I had Brian Bridges, our scouting director. He came and visited me at Chipola, and that was the only one that really went out of his way to meet me face to face, have a conversation, shake my hand. And I feel like baseball is a game of creating skill, but I think it's also a game that makes men. You go through a lot of up and downs with your mental. You got to stay as level as possible. But I think every day you're getting made into a greater man, a greater father. And I feel like the Royals have a lot to do with that. Of like they're worried about the person first before you're on the field. Like I had a sudden death in
Wow.
February. One of my best friend's mom passed away. And they were able to let me go back home. Hey, we're gonna get you there. Because this was at practice. I find out and I get a call, and so that hit hard. And credit to the Royals, man. They got me home and they were like, hey, go take care of your family. Let us know when you're good. And I mean that nobody just does that if you have a job. You know, they spend money on you, and you're expected to be there every day. But the fact that they care for my family, I mean, I love that on a much deeper level than anything that has to do with sports.
Yeah, we've had interviews with, or I've done interviews with other players before in the past, and they always kind of talk about like game doesn't last forever. And when you get those
No doubt.
organizations that like put the person first, knowing that there is, no matter how long you play the game, there is a life after baseball. You could play for 15
100%.
years, you're still going to have a life after baseball. So it's awesome to hear that they kind of really focus on the person.
No doubt.
For you, so you made your professional debut last year with Columbia. You're back in Columbia this year. Hit your first home run, I think, the other night.
Opening day.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some of the biggest adjustments for you as you kind of made your way to the pro level?
Being the same guy every day.
Hmm.
I think that's the main thing. And I think when you play for your teammates, it kind of takes care of itself, the numbers and everything. I had a hard time kind of stat chasing in some aspects of like the draft league whenever you're going and you're really playing for yourself, you know, like that's the truth of it. And it's hard to play baseball like that whenever you don't have a group of guys that you know and you love, you know. So to be able to go through spring training with these guys and to be able to get on the field with them now, it's like it's a lot more fun because you're playing for something and you're not worried about like, oh, I went 0 for 4, but at the same time, I had 2 ground balls that moved a runner over for my team, you know? So I think that's the biggest thing of my adjustment. Obviously, there's the swing adjustments, trying to get back on with the heaters, you know, getting atop of the zone right, just things like that, obviously playing perspective. But at the end of the day, like if you play for the guy next to you, your season and everything's going to be a lot better. So I think I've really been working on that, just being the same guy every day and giving my teammates the love they deserve.
Love it.
That's great. And, you know, you talked about that, you know, talked a little bit about, you know, not focusing on stat chasing and things like that. You know, your WOBA and walk rate have been really good. You know, but, you know, the batting average probably isn't where you wanted it. How do you process that kind of split when you're going through it in the moment?
Keep going. You got to stay the course. It's such a long season. You're going to go through them ups and downs. Everybody does it. If you play baseball, you've been through it. If you stay level-headed and you keep going every day and putting your cleats on the same way you did the day before, it's going to pan out how you want it to pan out. It's just the hard part is in between the ears, like we say.
So I love that mindset. That's awesome. Last one I got for you before we dive into just a couple fun questions before we wrap up. For you, Kansas City Royals have a really exciting group of young players in the system right now, right? They look at the 2025 draft, a lot of young talent, 2024, same. What's the energy like with you coming up with that group and just coming up together?
I tell you, this draft class doesn't disappoint.
No.
Man, you drafted 20 guys and you got 20 of the best dudes that you probably could have picked in the country of like just people wise, man. Our 20 guys are so close that you wouldn't even believe it. Like we act like we've been playing the game for so long. Actually really close with Sean Gamble, Brooks Bryan, Josh Hammond. It's 3 of my really good buddies from our draft class. Cam Edge, another JUCO guy. Those guys feel like I've been playing with them for my whole life, and they're a blast to be around every day. They're the same person, even though Josh and Gamble are very young, but they carry themselves in some of the most mature ways I've ever seen for an 18, 19-year-old kid. Like it's unbelievable. But we have a blast, man. I'll tell you, we go out to dinner. We got 15 guys. Like it's just fun, you know. So I'm happy that I was in that group, and I couldn't be more blessed to call them like family now.
No, I love it. I do a college coverage and college podcast. We interviewed Brooks Bryan last year, and
He's the best.
dude,
He's the best.
awesome.
He's the best. He's great.
Yeah, great dude.
Yeah. Well, I think we're gonna kind of move on to like kind of our non-baseball questions or fun questions. And so first thing is what's the go-to food spot back home in Lake Charles?
Oh my gosh, Daryl's Po' Boys. Oh my gosh. You couldn't have asked a better first question, I'll tell you that. Now you got me hungry.
Was it debris? Do they have a good debris sandwich, or is that what it's called? The one like the roast beef?
It's a po' boy. So they have their special, which is like 3 different meats and then a bunch of everything else housed. I get the surf and turf, which is roast beef and shrimp. It's got cheese. It's got their homemade gravy is to die for, bro. I'm telling you, it's nuts.
Oh.
Yeah, you got me hungry.
I'm hungry now. I haven't eaten dinner yet. Oh man.
Ah, damn.
Have you seen that guy on Instagram that goes to like all places?
Yeah.
in Louisiana?
Yeah, I think he went to Darrow, so you guys got to check that out. That was good stuff.
That's awesome. For you, so what's been the most memorable moment in your career so far?
Ooh, this one's tough. This one's real tough. I'd say, all right, this one's a throwback. I'd say my senior year, Barb High School, we're down 4-1 in the seventh inning. We got one outs, and we're down 4-1. We're facing a really good pitcher, Brendan Eager. He was at ULM, but there's 7,000 in the stands. High school baseball state championship. My best friend's up to bat. We end up scratching a run, and then we got the bases loaded. It's 4-2. Best friend's up to bat, and I'm standing on deck, and he hits a walk-off homer, or not a walk-off homer, but go-ahead grand slam. I think to do that with that team, obviously, and then I come up and I did well, but I think that moment, even though it's not about me, I feel like that moment has the biggest like outlook on baseball for me. Like I think that's the biggest part of me was I mean, I grew up with that guy Donovan LaSalle. Shout out Donovan, he's playing at UL right now.
Nice.
But I think that part, doing that with those guys that I grew up with and being on youth prospects, having that, I think that really kind of paved the way for one Barb High School, and then I mean, me and my best friend, how everything just started blowing up, where everything was great, you know. So I think that swing kind of changed everything, and it was the biggest like shock moment for me that whenever he hit that, I couldn't be more happy because a lot of people will ask you like, how'd you feel that he did it? You know, I was like, that's the best moment I've ever had in sports history. My best friend hit a absolute tank.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. When you're not on the field, what are some things you do to decompress and, just stay relaxed?
MLB The Show.
Nice.
You play as yourself?
You dang right I do. This is funny. So we have Josh Hammond, our first rounder this past year, and Brooks Bryan. The game gave me and Brooks Bryan 80 speed, and they gave Josh 55. It's hilarious. And Josh blows us out the water. We're two big dudes, and he's real fast on the field. And then in the game, he's just 55 speed. So we'll clown him a good bit. It's fun. Because we know we'll never be able to run in real life, but we can still base it on the game.
To get the college catcher 80 grade speed?
Yep, damn right they did.
Crazy.
It's great.
I love it. For you, so this is kind of a loaded question, so you can go any direction you want with this. So you played outfield, you played first base. Build your Mount Rushmore of like 4 guys that you've just kind of looked up to in baseball. It doesn't have to be the best of all time. I don't want you to get thrown under the bus because like we clip that and all of a sudden everybody's gonna be like, oh, this guy picked these guys as a 4. No, just anybody that you just kind of looked up to.
Okay, so growing up, I was pitching, so it was always kind of Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah,
I'll say that. Even though I'm hitting now, but that I feel like that's reasonable because I was a pitcher for so long. I'd say Shohei Ohtani is a guy that I watch a lot. Just because the way he moves and just like his stuff is so elite, man, that whenever you break it down in video, you want to be just like it. Like that's the truth of it. I mean, he's one of the best in the game, and to watch him do what he does is very impressive. Who else? I really like PCA. I think PCA is a very fun guy to watch. And then Ian Happ. I'm a big Cubbies guy. I like my Cubbies. But those 2 guys were 2 that I really liked watching, especially in the playoff run last year whenever the Cubs went to the playoffs. And sadly, the Royals didn't make the playoffs, but we'll be there this year.
Oh, yeah.
But I think those 4 were kind of the guys that I always looked at, and I was like, these guys have it. You know, they have a special thing about them. Ian Happ, being able to hit the ball wherever he wants, when he wants, like the whole field perspective, PCA, everything's electric about him. Shohei Ohtani, one of the most freakish athletes of all time. And then Clayton Kershaw, I mean, he's a vet, dude. He's a vet.
I love it.
Legend, man. Legend.
No doubt.
And then my last question, what would be your potential walk-up song at the K?
Ooh. I'm a guy who likes to get like the crowd into it, you know. So I mean, I'm listening to one right now. It's Mimosa 2000 or something like that, or Mimosa 008. I don't know what it is exactly, but I think I'll have that one tomorrow for the homestand. And it's a good little it gets everybody moving for sure.
All right.
I love it.
I'll get that on the Apple Music there. There we go.
Go check it out. I don't know if I said it right, but I just found it like 2 days ago because I was looking hard. So I was like, I really like this one. So I don't know if I'm saying it right. I might have butchered it for the people who hear me, but that's where I'm going.
I love it. JC, we can't thank you enough, man, for taking the time to join us on Royals
Thank you.
Pipeline. Really excited just to kind of follow your journeys, follow your career. Hopefully, see you at the K one day here in the future. Just been awesome to just sit down and chat baseball with you, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you guys. Go Royals.
Yep. Go Royals, and thanks again, JC.
Always, no doubt.
All right, big thanks to JC for joining the show. Awesome interview. Awesome just sit down and talk baseball, talk life with him. Kev, what did you really like about that interview with JC?
Yeah, like you said, 80 grade human, just a really, really good guy. I mean, he's the kind of guy that was just really, as soon as we got on the air, he just was really friendly and just really chatting it up. He's the kind of guy you can really root for. I mean, in some ways, like he reminds me a lot of like a Vinny Pasquantino. He's just a guy that you want to be around and just want to talk to. And he's somebody that you just can't help but root for. And so I just really enjoyed that talking with him. I know we both did. And so just a great, great dude, and makes you really happy to be a Royals fan that there are guys like this coming up in the system.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who kind of intrigued me up on the draft day as well. He had Tommy John, I believe, at one point because he was pitching, and then he just moved to first base completely after that. So it's big power. He barrels that ball with ease, and it's just a real solid athlete. So excited what he can do in the system. I think the Royals took a shot at him because they thought he was going to have some potential. Like he was a Florida State commit, so he had a big time commitment on the plate as well. Decided to come to the Royals just because he talked really in depth about how the front office kind of treats players, and it's just kind of awesome to see as well. So check. I hope you enjoy that interview. Do you have any final thoughts here before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to me, we're going to start hitting the second full week for a lot of these teams. So especially like we talked about, I mean, it'd be really easy to give up on some of these guys, after kind of their first performances. I mean, yes, Sean Gamble, yes, Josh Hammond, yes, Blake Mitchell had their growing pains, but again, give them some time, especially for these young guys in their first experience of the year. It could change real quick. So and again, you can find all these games if you have MLB TV. All these games are on MLB TV. So try to watch when you're not watching the Royals. Try to watch some prospect coverage on MLB TV.
That same theme goes for the big league team. I know people are frustrated with Lane Thomas specifically. You got to give him some time. I know he was injured most of last year too. And I'm not saying expect the world out of Lane Thomas, but at least give the man some time to get his feet underneath him. Like everybody wants the Royals to win every single game this year. It's not going to happen. Patience, I think, is the virtue there.
Yeah, you have to be as a Royals fan, especially with this system. And like you said, we're what 12 games in. It's like it's just. I mean, the Mariners are doing poorly. The Red Sox are doing poorly. Jarren Duran, who everybody wanted, look at him. He's like has a OPS under 600. So it's just we're still really early. A lot could happen both on the prospect and at the major league level.
I still want us to just get you Willie Abreu, but I don't think that's happening anymore.
I don't think so anymore. I think Red Sox like, yep, we're gonna sign him a check.
Yep. He's raking again, and he raked in the World Baseball Classic too. So good for Willier. We'll wrap up with that. But thank you all for tuning in. Really hope you enjoyed that interview. Really hope you enjoyed the podcast. We'll have some longer episodes as the season kind of wears on here, and we have some more to talk about. But hoping to bring you just kind of the coverage of the farm system, bring you updates from each level, and then we'll kind of come up with some fun segments and things like that. Maybe some minor league drafts, and we'll see who can draft the best team, all those kind of things. So be sure to tune in. Be sure to follow Kevin, myself, KC Sports Network on X, and then subscribe to the YouTube channel as well to make sure you don't miss a single episode. But until next time, we'll see you.
See you.